is not just a dry collection of dates and names etched in textbooks. It's a vibrant, interconnected series of moments, decisions, and turning points that collectively shape the world we inhabit today. These moments, both large and small, ripple through time, influencing our present and molding our future. The Cuban Missile Crisis, unfolding in the tense autumn of 1962, was one such pivotal moment, a flashpoint that brought the world to the very edge of oblivion. For 13 agonizing days, the United States and the Soviet Union, the two superpowers of the Cold War era, stood face to face, locked in a terrifying confrontation on the brink of a catastrophic nuclear war. The stakes could not have been higher. The discovery of Soviet nuclear missiles secretly deployed in Cuba, just a mere 90 miles from the shores of Florida, the American mainland, triggered an immediate and intense standoff, a crisis with unimaginable and potentially world-ending stakes. A single misstep, a miscommunication, or a rash decision could have easily spiraled out of control, leading to a full-scale nuclear exchange and potentially the end of civilization as we knew it. This was not some distant, abstract geopolitical conflict confined to the halls of power. It was a very real and immediate crisis that reached into every American home and touched every human heart with fear and uncertainty. The world suddenly found itself grappling with new and frightening words: quarantine, a euphemism for a naval blockade; brinkmanship, the perilous art of pushing a situation to the edge of disaster; and the chilling concept of mutually assured destruction, or MAD. The very weapons designed to protect us from our enemies nearly became the instruments of our collective annihilation. The Cuban Missile Crisis is far more than just a dusty historical event relegated to textbooks. It's a profound and enduring lesson in the nature of fear, the burdens of leadership, and the incredibly fragile nature of peace in a world armed with devastating weapons. So, why does this particular crisis continue to haunt our collective consciousness, even decades later? Simply because it represents the closest humanity has ever come to the precipice of self-destruction, a stark reminder of our capacity for both creation and annihilation. The abstract and often distant threat of the Cold War suddenly became terrifyingly real, a tangible danger lurking just over the horizon. Therefore, understanding the complexities and nuances of this crisis isn't merely an academic exercise. It's an absolutely essential imperative for safeguarding our future and preventing similar catastrophes. The geopolitical landscape of the world has undoubtedly changed since 1962, but the underlying dangers of miscalculation, escalation, and armed conflict unfortunately remain ever present. The invaluable lessons gleaned from those harrowing 13 days, the critical importance of clear and open communication, the necessity of exercising restraint in the face of provocation, and the power of patient and persistent diplomacy are just as urgently needed now in our complex and interconnected world as they were then. The gripping story of the Cuban Missile Crisis serves as both a timeless warning about the perils of nuclear confrontation and a vital guide for navigating the multifaceted dangers of our present and future. The crisis began with a chilling discovery, revealed through the lens of a U-2 spy plane soaring high above. These reconnaissance missions captured photographs that would soon send shockwaves across the globe, plunging the world into a state of unprecedented tension and fear. The images revealed the unmistakable presence of Soviet nuclear missiles in Cuba, a mere 90 miles from American shores. This discovery confirmed the worst fears of Western intelligence agencies. Suddenly, American cities, including major metropolitan areas, were within striking distance, just minutes from potential nuclear destruction. The threat was no longer theoretical, it was immediate and terrifying. President Kennedy's advisors convened, a group known as the Executive Committee of the National Security Council, or EXCOM, debated the appropriate course of action. Should they launch a military strike against Cuba to eliminate the missiles, or risk a full-scale nuclear war with the Soviet Union? The stakes were impossibly high. Some, particularly within the military, pushed for an immediate and decisive attack, arguing that it was the only way to ensure American security. However, others warned of the catastrophic escalation that could result, potentially leading to a global nuclear holocaust. Kennedy, understanding the gravity of the situation, ultimately chose a third way, a path that sought to de-escalate the crisis without resorting to immediate military action. He ordered a naval quarantine, a strategic blockade of Cuba, to prevent further Soviet shipments of offensive military equipment. The world held its breath as Soviet ships, laden with unknown cargo, approached the quarantine line established by the US Navy. US forces were placed on DEFCON 2, the highest level of alert ever reached during the Cold War, signaling that nuclear war was considered imminent. For 13 agonizing days, the planet held its breath, teetering on the brink of nuclear annihilation. A single miscalculation, a single act of aggression, could have triggered a chain reaction, leading to global catastrophe and unimaginable destruction. In the White House and the Kremlin, the leaders of the two superpowers faced immense pressure. They confronted the horrifying reality that their decisions, their actions, could determine the fate of the world, potentially leading to its end. The crisis was no longer an abstract geopolitical game. It had become a terrifying countdown to potential global annihilation. The world's fate hung on a razor's edge, with every diplomatic move, every military maneuver, fraught with unimaginable risk. The tension was almost unbearable, the outcome desperately uncertain. Humanity waited, paralyzed by fear, hoping against hope that reason and restraint would prevail. Fear swept the globe as Kennedy's speech made nuclear war a real immediate threat. People rushed to stock up on supplies. Children practiced duck and cover drills, and families wondered if they had a future. The doctrine of mutually assured destruction, MAD, meant any attack would end in total annihilation. The balance of terror was delicate and could collapse at any moment. Unknown to many, Soviet commanders in Cuba had tactical nuclear weapons and authority to use them if invaded. A conventional attack could have triggered nuclear retaliation. The fog of war, misunderstandings, incomplete intelligence made the crisis even more dangerous. The world was closer to disaster than anyone realized. The threat was not just political, it was existential. At the center stood Kennedy and Khrushchev, pressured by hawkish advisors to escalate. Both men resisted, seeking a way out. Communication was key, but fraught with risk and delay. Secret back-channel messages and personal letters revealed their fears and hopes. Over a tense weekend, a deal emerged. The Soviets would remove missiles from Cuba if the US pledged not to invade. Secretly, the US also agreed to remove its Jupiter missiles from Turkey. Both leaders risked political backlash to avoid nuclear war. Compromise, not confrontation, prevailed. On October 28, Moscow announced the missiles would be dismantled. The world exhaled. The crisis ended not with victory, but with wisdom. Kennedy and Khrushchev chose survival over pride. Their restraint averted catastrophe. The lesson true leadership means stepping back from the brink. The world was forever changed. The Cuban Missile Crisis taught the world hard lessons. Clear, direct communication between adversaries is vital, hence the Moscow-Washington hotline. Empathy matters. Understanding your opponent can create off-ramps from disaster. Brinkmanship is dangerous. Accidents and miscalculations nearly triggered war. Patience and restraint are strengths, not weaknesses. Kennedy's choice to wait, to negotiate, bought precious time for diplomacy. The illusion of control in a crisis is just that, an illusion. Leaders must resist the urge for immediate action. The courage to pause can save the world. The crisis is a warning. In a nuclear age, wisdom and restraint are our best defense. Survival depends on learning these lessons. Today's world is more complex, but the lessons of 1962 remain urgent. Modern crises, nuclear standoffs, cyber threats, disinformation echo the dangers of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Direct communication and verifiable agreements are still essential. Forcing an adversary into a corner is a recipe for disaster. Wise diplomacy means creating off-ramps for de-escalation. The fog of war is thicker than ever, with new risks of miscalculation. Leaders must verify information and resist rash decisions. The human cost of fear and anxiety is real. Decisions made in crisis affect millions. Remembering 1962 is a sobering check on reckless rhetoric and aggression. The Cuban Missile Crisis was a crucible, a moment of intense pressure. It tested humanity's will to survive, pushing us to the very edge of nuclear annihilation. The fate of the world hung in the balance. Our survival was a choice, a conscious decision made amidst fear and uncertainty. It was made by leaders who chose dialogue over destruction, understanding the catastrophic consequences of war. They chose to talk, not to fight. Remembering this story preserves the knowledge, the hard-won wisdom. It reminds us of how close we came to the end, to a point of no return. It serves as a stark warning. The crisis is a permanent reminder, etched in the annals of history. It underscores that international relations are not a game, but a serious endeavor with real-world consequences. Brinkmanship is a gamble with civilization's future. a dangerous game with stakes too high to contemplate. The legacy is also one of hope, a testament to the power of human reason. It shows that diplomacy can prevail even in the darkest times when all seems lost. The hotline, a direct line of communication, test ban treaties, limiting the spread of nuclear weapons, and arms control all grew from those 13 days, born out of the ashes of near destruction. The crisis made the world more careful, more aware of the dangers lurking beneath the surface, more committed to peace, to finding common ground and avoiding conflict. It's a story about our capacity for both folly and wisdom, for making terrible mistakes and learning from them. Today's leaders face their own crises, their own unique challenges to navigate. Will they choose restraint? Will they learn from the lessons of the past? By remembering 1962, by studying the events of those fateful days, we honor those who steered us through the storm, the leaders who chose peace over war. The brink of oblivion must remain only a lesson from history, a reminder of the fragility of peace.